Jay, Jared, welcome to San Juan.
We're here.
Whether you like to or whether you wanted to be or not.
Yeah, exactly. Good
to have you guys here. Well, listen, today we're going to talk about this exciting transaction. Point Pest Control, Green Pest Services, and PestCo. So, Jay, CEO. Jared, I guess, are you the president now? Or what, do we know yet?
I'm not sure that's even been quite established. Man behind the curtain.
Okay,
yeah.
That's right. Yep. So maybe we can figure that out right now. So,
yeah, exactly.
So before we get into the point, Jay, let's talk a little bit about PestCo.
Sure.
So tell us, what's the deal?
So I made our first acquisition back in October with PestCo out of the Philadelphia area. PestCo is a commercial pest control company focused very heavily on restaurant management, do some multifamily. Our second acquisition was in Texas, and the Texas group is Eco Team and Virotrol.
Okay.
And that group specializes in multifamily and has found a way to make the multifamily pest control business very profitable and extremely effective. And now we've added the quintessential residential company to our portfolio in bringing Jared's team in with Point and Green. And the reason for these acquisitions, you can kind of now tell, is let's find people who specialize in specific areas, find the talent within those groups, grow that talent and start to cross-pollinate within our geography to bring, for example, multifamily into the DC area where we're going to be going with Eco next, or bringing residential into Texas with Point and into the Eco area. The reason for that is because we believe that you grow a company by growing its people. So we're very excited to see what the people that we've gained as a result of these acquisitions, what they're able to do over the next few years as we grow the company. So it's very exciting.
So let's take a step back for a second. PestCo is part of Thompson Street Capital Partners out of St. Louis. And I guess it was about a year ago, I got a call from Jeff Aiello, one of your partners there at Thompson Street. And he said, I want to get into pest control. And I was just like, okay, don't waste my time. Because quite frankly, I get, these private equity guys are a dime a dozen. I'm getting calls from these guys all the time. They want to come in, buy these businesses at 5 times LTM EBITDA, which that's not where the market's at. They look at the price tags, they run away. Jeff said, I'm not that guy. I have studied this industry. I really want to get into it. I like the dynamics. So, okay, fine. So we started to get Thompson Street involved in some processes. The first acquisition, as you mentioned, was Presto, right? So we took that business to market last year. Jeff and the team liked it, decided to buy it. And I guess at the same time, they were out looking for a CEO of PestCo. Right. So they went out and they did a search and they stumbled upon you. So where the hell did you come from? How did you get here?
How this happened?
Yes.
Well, I was fortunate enough in my career, when I got out of school, I started with All America, Sears, Termite and Pest Control, and Chuck Steinmetz as a service technician. Worked with that company for 13 years, leaving as the chief operating officer of the organization. We sold Sears Pest Control to the people at Terminex, and I went to work for Rollins. Went for the Rollins family for almost 13 years also. About 25, 26 years into my career in pest control, I was recruited away by a construction organization in Central Florida, based in Orlando, where I didn't have to do much traveling. My children were pretty accomplished athletes, and I had the opportunity to stay at home and watch them in those developmental years. So I spent the next 7 years as the president and COO of a construction company in Orlando, doing floors and cabinets and countertops in new homes. Got reached out to on LinkedIn, really was fine where I was, started having the discussion with Jeff, and became extremely interested when Jeff told me about his passion for founder-owned businesses. That's really what Thompson Street does well. If you look at their portfolio, even outside of pest control, you'll find out that when they have founder-owned businesses and route management, people in trucks doing services or supplying materials, they're very effective in growing those businesses. So as I saw their portfolio, very comfortable with the industry. I've known the pest control industry for 25 years. So what a great opportunity for me. My last child graduates from college this year, so that side of the equation is settled. I can now travel again and looking forward to it. Now I get to meet people like Jared and our people at Presto and at Eco and start to grow this organization to become a real player in the business.
So in August, PestCo was doing zero. It was just an idea.
Yes.
And now here in, I guess, February of 2022, business is doing roughly $40 million per annum. I've got a lot of questions for you on this, but before I get to that, I'll talk to Mr. Borg. I've known Jared for a long time. I literally never suspected he and I would ever be sitting down.
Me neither.
Having this conversation.
Correct, same. Same.
And here we are. So, Jared, you are a meaningful participant in this new business venture. You didn't sell that business and run away. You got super soaked about getting some growth capital for that business, growing the shit out of it.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah. How did we get here?
How did we get here?
Well, I could probably point to a few different things. One, like it's a midlife crisis.
Yep.
I needed a change of pace. No, probably not a midlife crisis, a good way to put it, but 5 years in the door-to-door industry, 16 years as a founder. And, we'd kind of had grown away from that door-to-door model. And there was a chance you just turn into everybody else, right? Where if you look at like the PCT top 50, and if you're not doing door-to-door and you're not doing acquisitions, you're growing at high single digits, right? And it's pretty boring, frankly, right? Like there's not a big challenge there. We developed really great team members. We created a lot of great systems and processes, and we kind of pushed through that real challenging phase. And you see this a lot in businesses in that maybe 5 to 7 million range, where it's like, I got to get everything dialed or I'm done.
Yep.
And we pushed through that to that $20 million last year, and things are going awesome. And so, yeah, excited about a new challenge. And then there's definitely some intersectionality between listening to the propaganda and the market rates, right? And then that opportunity to either be someone's entry into the Midwest, because we're doing well there, or someone's entry into like as a platform. And so Thompson Street checked both those boxes for us.
But you had the opportunity to do a 100% change of control transaction, but yet you decided, I want to stick with this. Why?
That's what my wife asks me every single day. You sure you want to do this? Well, a few reasons. One, when you go through this process, you get a little sentimental. And so one of the things I've realized is that my entire life, I've almost always worked with my friends. And early on, that was difficult. Like when you're running summer sales programs, your friends are screwing off, you're firing your buddies. That's a really awkward relationship, right? And so mostly I got really good at working with the right friends and developing really good relationships. And I have really good, sharp people, and I become friends with people. And I wasn't ready to end those relationships, and I wasn't ready to end that part of my life. And so this was a good balance for that. So at 41, my kids are still in school. I don't have a bunch of other friends with unlimited time and resources. Like, what the hell am I going to do with myself? So this was a unique challenge for me, right? To pair with Jeff and with Jay and essentially give me a blank check to go grow Point and Green. And there was some real attractiveness to protecting those brands and seeing those flourish and those people taken care of and bringing them along for the ride. And so that's a good opportunity and we took it.
So you were effectively able to take advantage of high valuations in the current market.
Yep.
Take some proverbial chips off the table, but also remain an equity holder. Because, dude, you're in your early 40s. You weren't ready to sit around and do nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a question I have for you, Jay.
Okay.
You're the CEO of PestCo. You're still based down in Florida.
Yes.
Jared, it appears, is going to be kind of the president of the residential platform. He'll continue to drive growth at Point and Green. Kyle Woodbury, who's a great guy, was your partner for 16 years.
Yep.
Literally helped you build that business from scratch. You two were in the trenches together.
Yep. Super sharp guy.
Great guy. So when you think about growth, one of the things that you mentioned to me, it's like, I see all these private equity guys come into this space, right? Sometimes it's like, there's that private equity playbook. It's a consolidated, fragmented market. Let me just go out and buy shit all over the place. Next thing you know, I own all these disparate geographies and divisions. And the one thing that I've appreciated about Anti-Cemex has been Jarl's discipline in acquiring platform businesses like Point, going out, buying small businesses within that particular market and kind of blending down the entry multiple. I have these conversations with Mike Givlin over at Certus. I clearly have these discussions with Jeff all the time. When a private equity firm gets the first platform or two, then you got to figure out how to grow. Sometimes you have to be opportunistic, right? Sometimes there's a platform available way far away and you're like, but it's here, it's now, right? We got to get it. But when you think about growth, Jay, you talked about Texas. And I would understand why you would think about bringing Point down to Texas, because you have that commercial operation in the state of Texas all over. But what's your What's your growth strategy from a geographic perspective? How do you think about that?
Well, I think we grow around where we are now in specific areas. What's nice about this is that Point is our residential platform. Yep. But now that we have Point and the expertise that Jared's team brings, Jared and his team bring to that, we not only have the area in Chicago or the Midwest, but we also have DC, we have Virginia, we have Texas. We can now take Point and kind of make it ubiquitous in all three of our platform areas. The nice part about our three platforms is they are in three different areas. And it's going to allow us to start bleeding between the three or start blending those organizations together. So growth in multifamily, our next greenfielding operation originally for ECO was not going to be Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. But now that we're already platformed in Washington, D.C., and we did the market research and found out it's the 6th largest apartment unit demographic in the country, what great opportunity to take the learnings that the people, the Polens brothers, bring to them in moving multifamily, inserting them into the Washington, D.C. market, using some of the oversight we have available to us through PestCo in D.C., and building that business quickly.
When you think about this national platform that you're building, do you have any particular aspirations in terms of size or geographic scope? How are you thinking about that?
We're 3 months into it now. I believe we can be as big as we want to be. We continue to attract talent like the talent we've got so far. Mm-hmm. That's a very important part of our decision making is what are we getting with the deal? What do these companies look like? Are they well run? Are they well organized? Do they bring a lot to the market? And when they do, you're able to take those people and help them get to another level. I was very fortunate in my career. I mentioned earlier, I started as a technician. I was exposed to some of the guys in this industry who people have looked up to and have known. I've worked for Chuck Steinmetz. I worked for John Wilson. I had the opportunity to work with Greg Clendenin and others, people like that, that have been in the industry for a long time. And it's not that everybody has all the right answers, but it's nice when you can have that many different people influence the way you think about something and give you an understanding of what might happen in the industry from different perspectives. Now bringing in people like Jared, the people over at Presto, the Polens brothers at Equo. Again, there's more of those very smart people. And when we think about it together, we can make almost anything happen.
So when I think about the businesses that you folks have acquired thus far, right? Point, Green, Presto, all of which I know intimately, I think about, on the one hand, you got a big private equity firm, right? A lot of capital. You've got you coming in with more of the institutional pest control background, Rollins, for example, right? Sears. And then I look at guys like Jared and Kyle. When I look at Jared's brother who rides around on a skateboard, he's my age. Yeah. These guys have grown very fast growing businesses, and Jared's been off the doors for a long time. So great top line growth, extremely profitable, young team, super motivated. I know that his business, they worked very hard on building the culture. I wonder how somebody like you sits back and says, okay, I'm a Rollins guy, right? I'm coming, I bleed red because, you know, you come from the old school, right? Like the Sears, the Rollins, or is that not right?
No, that's not correct. I have to differ with you.
Okay.
Well, I know that in this industry, traditionally Rollins is the standard bearer for old school.
Yep.
Sears was everything but the standard bearer for it. When we did once a year pest control, we were looked at as completely off the rails. Somebody had nothing to do, although Chuck's an entomologist and very talented gentleman. We did once a year pest control. We went to a house one time and serviced it, and it was it for the entire year. So that whole model started from nothing and grew to over $100 million in the span of 13, 14 years. Mm-hmm. The reason for that was because, and it was all internal, not acquisition, internal growth, spouted by eventual young people with a different idea of things, just kind of you described with Jared's team, which is one of the reasons I really like his organization. I think what really rings true, though, about the Rollinses of the world, the Sears of the world, and the Points of the world, is when you find people that are very good, you usually find one specific thing. They are really good at getting the metrics of the individuals in the hands of the individuals. Point does a very good job of everybody in their company knowing where they stand against what they're supposed to deliver. And they celebrate those deliverables at the truck level. This business isn't won or lost in the boardroom. It's not won or lost by the guys in Atlanta on Piedmont Avenue or won or lost by the guys in Memphis, Tennessee. They're wonderful, smart people. No question. But the men and women in the trucks, the men and women on the phones, they win and lose in this business because that's who customers deal with. That's who the guy driving the route in Chicago is Point Pest Control to the customers. All difference, Jared's not.
Yeah.
That to the customers, that's Point Pest Control. So our job is to help to continue that culture of building from the bottom up, driving the organization so people in leadership positions can do more. They can take on more scope, more ability, grow it, just like you described with Point. Who knows how big we can be? I don't think there's now, and you've mentioned that Thompson Street comes with capital and some clout and an understanding of this business. Makes it exciting for a lot of people.
Speaking of people, I know we're like 3 or 4 days into this. Right. So how was the announcement with the people? How was your management team? I know you've had the management team involved here for a while, but like what's your people think?
Yeah, so far so good, right? Everyone's pretty excited. We brought in our key people early in the process so they knew and there wasn't a surprise. And then maybe midway through the process, we brought in, field level management so they knew what was going on. And probably a couple weeks before, we even brought in everyone like service managers and office managers. And because it wasn't, here's a Terminex uniform, I'm out of here, everyone was like, oh, cool, so you're staying on. There's opportunity for growth. Everything essentially stays the same. It was almost kind of like no big deal, It was like it's fun, exciting, but their data life doesn't change a lot. And some of these guys, have really sharp folks that work for you for 7, 8 years, and if you become that old model where you're growing in the single digits, you could be a guy that's waiting for your promotion doesn't happen until the guy above you dies or retires.
Exactly.
That's a hard place to be. We have some really sharp people we want to give opportunities to. So the announcement went, as far as I can tell, it went great. We posted that, and in fact, I meant to take a little video recording and like show it like on our internal platform. And it's like, what I didn't expect, which is funny, is people telling Kyle and I congrats. I don't know why that always catches me off guard, because I was thinking, this is a thing about us. And that always makes me almost uncomfortable, because the decision felt less about me and more about them and what we're doing as an organization.
With regard to opportunities, right? So what Jared just said about, the promotion comes around when somebody dies or retires.
Right.
What sort of, in your mind, Jay, and I know you guys are very early into this, do you have any sort of ideas of how life may change for some of these team members as far as additional opportunities?
Absolutely. I mean, when people are capable and available, meaning that they're able to get to a certain area or help in a certain geography, we're going to have the wherewithal, we're going to have the resources to grow this business at a rapid rate. So we're going to need leaders in new organizations, new part of our business. People are going to have to be promoted up to different levels of management. We started in October. In the next 30 to 60 days, 5 of the existing people in the first 2 platforms are taking on more responsibility and being promoted already, based on this strategy, based on us doing some things that we're already planning on doing. So I'm already seeing it work or seeing it happen. And it's only I get the opportunity to work with such smart people. It's those people in the frontline management who have seen this, who want what Jared wants, he's described, or his leadership team wants. It's the chance to say, hey, we're not restricted to this. We're thinking about going here. Who's interested? Who wants to play? Now let me see if you have the skill sets and you have the right mentality and it's where you want to go, and let's pick the right people in the right place and let them enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
And Jared, hey, let me add to that. There's probably a little bit of a strategic shift. We've done a pretty good job of this, of trying not to view as like every time Kyle and I want to create a new position or make an investment, because that's one of the things I think maybe people in this industry struggle with, or founders struggle with, is investing in people or positions or overhead. As an owner, when you invest in those things, there's always this back in my brain, it's like, oh, this is hitting my bottom line, or maybe I won't make as much, or this project might cost whatever. And you think, and you always just get that feeling like, well, maybe I won't make that. And it's actually really relieving to make that transition to saying, hey, now I'm just taking care of this business, and I'm like nurturing it and helping it grow. And if I need to make investments, it's not like I don't have to justify it to anybody as far as the bottom line. It's like, hey, this is what's right for the business. And so that's also a shift that I welcome. I don't have to always be thinking about Jared Borg's bottom line,
Well, I mean, you and I have had conversations for years about your desire to do acquisitions, but you look at the prices for these targets and you're like, dude, I'm not going to spend that sort of money. I mean, are you excited about the opportunity there in the Midwest as well as in the Mid-Atlantic to actually start to do accretive acquisitions? Yeah,
that's been something we've always loved to do. And if you look at if you want the magic sauce that everybody has, you're kicking ass organically online, right? If your text can sell, dude, you're crushing it, right? That's awesome. If you can do acquisitions, and now all of a sudden, you've got a few different legs of the marketing stool all working together. Oh man, that's a secret formula. And then, right, you're setting yourself apart from everybody else. And so we felt like we'd really dialed in. We backed off the doors a little bit, but I think we'll still use the doors, to maybe open new markets or to add some density when you do an acquisition. We've got the online thing figured out. And now we've got a partner that can help us do these acquisitions. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity there to really set us apart and do some unique things. And we're looking forward to that. That's going to be fun.
And where's PestCo based? I know we live in a virtual world now, but where's the HQ of PestCo?
Meta, it's based in Metaverse.
It's everywhere.
Didn't I hear Seth was going to make a virtual pest control truck the other
He
day?
was talking about that. Yeah, that's right. He's selling research, or he's selling real estate in the metaverse.
Yeah. We'll service that real estate in the metaverse.
Get them as an account.
Yeah.
So you're in Boise.
Yep.
You're in Orlando.
Right.
Does it have a headquarters now? If we thought that far ahead.
It doesn't even matter anymore.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Key people on my team are in Denver, one's in Dallas.
Yeah.
As long as the players are on the same page, everybody's rowing in the same direction. Communication nowadays, with everything online, you don't have to be in the same building. I mean, if there's one small silver lining of this disaster we've lived with for the last 2 years, it taught us that you don't have to be in the same building to get stuff done.
Absolutely.
Right.
We've also found that this is maybe more for these guys that own smaller businesses, but the best thing I ever did was remove myself from the day-to-day operation. We had to build our branches so that we're not there all the time. Like the worst thing that could ever happen is someone's like, we can't solve this problem without Jared or Jay. It's
right.
Like, we have sharp people and we trust them and we empower them, and headquarters is no big deal.
That's right.
I mean, effectively, you were out in Chicago Metro for the first 2-3 years while you were building that business, and then you got out of Dodge. Right?
Yeah, so I lived in Chicago for 4 years. We grew it. And then, we had a really smart partner that says, you guys need to leave.
Yep.
And it's going to force us to put all the right systems and processes in place. We bought a company called Ecotech in Virginia in 2010. Mm-hmm. And then we converted that to green. We used to be out there a lot in the summer to help those programs. And then it was less and less and less. And now it's funny because it's like a compliment to our staff when they haven't seen us for a while.
Yeah.
They're like, dude, they trust us,
Yeah. I mean, how often do you make it out to Chicago or Virginia now? I know COVID's probably slowed you down a little bit, but I mean, in recent years, what was your frequency of?
Yeah, so it just depended. It's like, it used to be that I was out there all the time in the summer, mm-hmm. and I was there and I was helping the programs and they were busy. And then it hit me. They're so busy in the summer. There's so much going on that I almost travel less in the summer now. Like, I'm going to get the hell out of your way because you guys are swamped, right? So probably somewhat less in the summer, more in the off season. If we ever roll out projects or initiatives, or if we want to do some advanced training, all that stuff's done in the off season now. So, I might be out there every other month, quarterly, and then we do service summits where we bring all of our leadership team together in the off season. That's a big thing to get those guys together. That's been hurt since COVID. People can't travel as much. I do have one good story about COVID. Can I tell you?
I'd love to hear.
You might have been, I don't know which meeting I told this in, but I'll tell the story now. When COVID was going on and all of a sudden we couldn't travel, you could see it was rough on your people, man. Like all of our CSRs are working remote. Our technicians were only showing up by appointment to pick up product one at a time. We decided to travel. I think it was October of 2020. Lynn, my COO, and I decided we were behind on hiring some field managers, and so we went out to Chicago, and we were there, and he was trying to get this done. And we show up in the office, it's like a ghost town. And usually when we're there, it's like we're trying to spread some cheer. We buy everybody lunch. We tell them we love them. And we're like, dude, how do we show the love to these guys? And so my COO had a great idea. He's like, hey, let's go to Target. And we filled up 4 shopping carts full of booze. Mm-hmm. And we just started showing up at their houses. We'd knock on their door, CSRs, techs, you name it. And we're like, here's a little treat. We love you. We're sorry you're going through this. We appreciate you. And what was cool is if you see their kids or their spouse and you get to tell, their a CSR's husband, your wife is so talented at what she does. We appreciate her so much. And then he says, oh man, she loves her job. She loves working there. Or you go to a technician's house, and we'd gone to a technician's home and they had just bought the home. And that was part of a big deal. We celebrated the company, and you're giving them a little gift. And for us, it actually was a cool thing because I'd never I only see my technicians at work or CSRs at work. And so that was pretty unique. We even got invited in a couple times, and you're like sitting in their living room, and like, what a cool opportunity that was to go out and see these folks and let them know, like, hey man, we love you. We realize it's hard. So COVID brought about some things that made us adapt and get better. And Lynn went and traveled to Virginia a few weeks later and did the same thing with one of our field managers and the same good experiences. And so it forces you to show your people you care in other ways.
As you grow this business under PestCo, I would imagine, Jared, and I know the dust is still settling on this, but I would imagine it's going to allow you to do less of what you either don't like or you're not good at, and more of what you do like.
God willing.
That's the plan, Jay. Like, let's make that happen.
That is the plan.
But I'd back up and say, since I started the business, I learned pretty early on that I needed to just grow and replace myself. And if any task at my business was reliant on me doing that, like on a daily or weekly basis, okay, next in line, hire someone to do this.
Yep.
And I learned early on that I was not the best at most anything at that company. And finding people that were better than me was not a complicated thing. And then I found a niche where, for the most part, Lynn Peterson runs day to day, and it allows me to execute strategy, to work on really creative things on the marketing side, develop relationships with people in the industry, and do some foresight into what this looks like in 2 or 3 years on the road. And so really for the last few years, I've been doing what I like, but we needed some more resources and some capital and some partners that would help us do some of those bigger things.
So you guys are running a $20 million platform. But what was prior to this sale, I mean, what did you really, if you could spend your time on one thing, what was it? Like, what did you really enjoy? Or what do you really enjoy doing?
I really enjoy strategy, and I really enjoy building our people up and giving them opportunities. Some of that strategy is a weird thing. You can go and people want to outsource, say, HR or payroll or their SEO. Yeah. But even I guess you could spend on the marketing. Very few people are outsourcing strategy. They're trying to outsource one thing, right? Mm-hmm. And that felt like something in our industry that maybe businesses our size were lacking, was maybe some strategy, right? And so it's been fine. And that's a unique thing to come up with and say, how do we make door-to-door, online marketing, technicians, all these different pieces work together harmoniously? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it takes removing yourself from that and looking back, and you might move one little switch here, one little knob here, and get things just right. And then my job is just to get the hell out of the way, right? And so that's mostly what I've done. I enjoy doing that. I like the small tweaks and tuning, and we like empowering our people with that. And so I'm never going to show up in a branch and say, hey, you need to do your inventory this way or run your tech meetings this way. I'm going to say, here's your KPIs. Here's what I expect you to hit. Exactly. And I want you to figure out how to do it, right? And I'm not even going to trick you into making it think that it was your idea. Yeah. I'm going to legit let you come up with it, right? Yep. And I'm going to give you a leash long enough to not hang yourself, but to be creative and do things. And so while a lot of things are standardized across the platforms, there are some differences, and we embrace that. And we let them have a little bit of competitive advantage against each other to then get the other branch to say, hey, why don't you guys figure out what you're doing a little bit? So, so if I can focus on big strategy, working behind the scenes with really sharp people, and I love securing talent too. Like, I've really enjoyed hiring sharp people and developing relationships with them to do their job the best they can. We have a really sharp CMO that I really enjoy working with. I don't know. I just told you I like doing a lot of stuff.
I know. I know this one out.
Yeah.
We've got this on film.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that's important, I think, and it's really interesting, and I was told this a long time ago, there's no such thing as status quo. Because even if you're not moving, the world is. Yep. So you can't stay the same and stay the same because the rest of the world around you is moving. And it seems like inherently the platforms we're partnering with and we're bringing into the family understand that the world is dynamic and the people are dynamic and they're into and interested in what's going on for not only their customers, which is mission critical. Customer experience is what it's all about. Yep. But they're also interested in for their internal customers, the people that they're developing, that they've hired. You heard Jared just say, I love going hiring smart people and giving them the chance to do this. I've had the opportunity, I've had the blessing to be able to do that thousands of times in my career in the pest control industry. And what's fun about this is to find a group of people who all feel the same way. You put that together, and then all of a sudden 1 + 1 + 1 equals a whole lot more than 3.
So A lot of guys out there wonder, private equity has continued to move into pest control. But I think a lot of people are like, all right, what is it? Is it somebody just making an investment in my business? Is it a change of control? How does all of this work? And I want to talk to you two a little bit about that. So, Jared, you started this process, and it was one in which, like we talked about earlier, I never thought we would actually be sitting here. And you looked at it and said, okay, with where valuations are, I will explore this, and I want to explore the strategic route, but I also want to explore the private equity opportunities, because I think for years you were talking about private equity. I remember us having conversations about
Well,
private
yeah,
equity.
you're always interested in what that balance looks like, and I don't know how in depth you want to go into this because of the unique nature of it. But if you think about it, if I want to just sell and walk away, then I call Paul and I'm like, run a competitive bidding process and give me the highest bidder, and I walk away. And I know everybody says that they want to make sure it's with the best hands and all that stuff, but ultimately, who do they go with?
Yeah,
The highest bidder.
Yeah.
Well, now you go to private equity, you say, okay, but I want to partner. So I still have to run a competitive bidding process to establish what that market value is. Yep. And then I got to bring in someone that I actually like and want to work with. And so that's a lot, as we can attest, we've been through this, that's a lot more complicated process. I'm assuming that's right. That was a complicated process we went through.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you had a full head of hair like 6 months ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, I get that.
So when people have been asking me the last couple of days, explain the private equity play to me, explain how it works. And I say, well, one, what are your goals long term? That's specifically different if you want to just hand the keys and walk away. Are you interested in giving up some of your equity now? Because that's a big ask for some people, is to give up, everybody would love to give up 15% equity for someone to come in and be like, here's a blank check to go do whatever you want. But, most of these folks want controlling interest and all the stuff that goes along with that, right? Yep. And so there's a real comfort level you have to build with that. I think, I've heard you give this advice a lot, that when people are in my position and they're trying to build their business and they're trying to, outsource some ideas or network with people, you're like, get outside of your industry. You give that advice a lot. Mm-hmm. So TSCP has a really interesting case study with Len the plumber.
Yep.
They've crushed it with Len. What's really interesting is we told our people in Virginia that was one of the case studies. Every single one of them were like, oh yeah, we know about Len the plumber. Like, they're crushing it on the traditional advertising. They're crushing it online. They're buying companies. And so you see a company like that, and I hadn't seen anything like that yet in the private equity market, where someone had found a service industry and was really actually successfully consolidating, and in one market. That Len the plumber is really in that Northern Virginia, Maryland, Baltimore area. They're crushing it. And so that gave me a lot more comfort level that these guys were serious about the service industry and understood how it worked. And it's somewhat route-based, things like that.
When you look at Len the plumber, right, for example, do you feel like you're being pulled then into an ecosystem of other service-based businesses where you can deal with the CEO of Len the plumber, like the CMO, all the guys that they have in there, and say, what are you guys doing?
Yes.
Here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And you go across the different portfolios.
Yes.
We don't know, I have an incredibly talented chief marketing officer, and he was like, hey man, I can't wait for someone at Len the plumber to tell us how they do media buys. Right? We've never done media buys. We've done zero branding up until now. I just bought a media branding package for our company. Might as well told those guys. I just placed an order for that. But that's something that we saw as like a part of our business that was missing, especially in a place like, I think you'd agree with me. In Chicago, we have market share. Like, we're a big operation there. That's a place where we should be branding outside of just direct contact online, whether it's billboards or radio or whatever. You need a little bit of that. So yeah, to be able to tap into someone like Len the plumber and see what they're doing, that's cool.
Because you guys are doing zero media. Literally, it's online.
Zero.
And
we know, cool, we got this many customers last month from that exact channel and what that costs.
Yep.
And then we can pour more money into whichever one works the best. Like the questions that I get from people is, who are the other PE players in the party right now? Why them and not Certus? Or what is your plan going forward? And Danny, our VP of M&A, I asked him last night, so what's our strategy here? Kind of joking, but kind of serious. And it's like you were saying earlier, you're very opportunistic about trying to do the best you can with density plays and door to door and whatever you can. And yeah, maybe something pops up that wasn't on your radar and you have to decide, is that the strategic route you want to go? And it's a unique thing to be able to pivot.
Yeah.
And say, maybe I want to go to Indianapolis or whatever.
I think about a firm like Thompson Street. Jared got to see a few private equity firms. I get to deal with these guys every day of the week. And I don't want to throw shade on any other private equity backed firm out there. You've got EQT that owns Anti-CMX. You've got Imperial that owns Certus. So we're starting to see more of that in the industry. As I said earlier in the discussion, when Jeff, partner over at Thompson Street, first contacted me, he's like, Paul, I'm super serious about pest. I was like, yeah, so is everyone else. For the first 3 months, I ignored him. He kept texting me, email, I'm in, I want to get involved in process.
Jeff's nothing if not persistent.
No, he's
don't worry about Jeff. You'll hear from Jeff again.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not involving us in processes. We need to get into. Okay, fine. So I start bringing him. Right out of the gate, they were very serious. They had done their homework. And the one thing that I did like about Thompson Street was that they're not a lower middle market firm. I mean, this new raise, I think, was a $1.3 billion raise. So they're a real fund with a ton of dry powder behind them. So it's not like, hey, we're going to buy a $20 million business, do a few add-ons, maybe get it up to 40 million and figure out how we're going to flip it.
Yeah.
They're also pretty long-term focused, which a lot of other private equity firms are. So I appreciated the fact that Jeff wanted to get in. And in one of the first processes that we got him involved in, he was crazy aggressive, just Jeff style, coming in, bringing the team in, we're doing this deal, I'm buying this company, that's it. He got serious. So I said, okay, I want to get him involved. So they were involved in the process. We had the meeting out in Idaho. I think they may have been the first private equity firm that you sat down with after dealing with a bunch of different strategics. What was your impression of, okay, here's private equity now. This is the real deal. This is game time, Jared. This is the real meeting.
Yeah.
What'd you think of Jeff and the team?
Well, so first off, Jeff and Brandon, super sharp guys. And frankly, if you're in PE, you're a pretty sharp guy. You figured some things out in life. But they were serious. And if no one's ever been through that process, it's a little weird because I'm the one going to market and you think you're going to sit down and like pitch yourself and what you're doing awesome. And you sit down and all these guys are telling you it's the exact opposite. It's them saying why you should pick them. You know, and you're like, so, they tell us about Len the Plumber. They tell us about, Method Wheels and all these different industries they're in and how they work. And I can tell pretty quick if I'm going to click with someone and think that I can work with them. And Brandon and Jeff were two guys I was like, I think I could work with these guys, They came in and they were super competitive. Well, and we knew they were serious, right? And so as we worked through that was awesome. Really think highly of those guys.
And how was it so we go through this process, you and Kyle make the determination, we're going to partner with Thompson Street. At that point, no one's been through it. It's hard to imagine the work and the stress, everything that goes into it. But how was dealing with Thompson Street from the time we signed the LOI all the way to last week in the closing?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things, I was going to bring this up earlier, is I was having a strategy discussion with Jeff. And Jeff's 5 or 6 months into the industry. And I says, hey, what do you think about this? And he's like, well, you tell us. You've been in the industry for this long. What do you think we should do? And it was nice knowing you had a partner that was going to empower you. Nobody wants to find out at closing like, hey, the adults are in the room now. Kiddos, move along.
Exactly.
And so even in that process, he was like, and we were discussing strategy, and he was empowering us to be like, dude, the reason we're doing a deal with you is because we trust you to make some of these decisions and to help us guide that path and vision. And so that was a pretty good sign early on that, okay, this is a good fit for me.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, congratulations. This is the biggest platform acquisition that PestCo has made. This is going to kick off the residential division. Jay Keating, Jared Borg. For any of our listeners out there who actually want to track these guys down, Jared's a great guy to talk to. He's just gone through this process. If you're thinking about a strategic sale, private equity, what opportunities. If you're in the Midwest or in the Mid-Atlantic, Jared would like to talk to you about buying your business, right, Jared?
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Do some propaganda for you too.
I know.
Right?
Apparently, I'm going to learn some ground game. Shake some hands, kiss some babies.
That's exactly right.
Buy some text dinners.
Thanks for joining us today, guys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.